It's recording. I've got a bit of a streak across. Goes across my face. Nobody needs to see that. I think I waved my hands around and it started recording because it does take selfies when I go. Anyhow, good afternoon. This is the knitting news for week 31 of 2024. My name's Annie, and there's also some footage, some very interesting footage of one of the oldest spinning wheels you could ever find at the Durham Guild of Spinners, Weavers and Dyers. I think I got that right. But to start with, the other night at knitting, Jill was working on her stripy cardigan, and it's not far from finished. So I think we'll be seeing that soon. And the other one's finished, and the lace one's finished and needs blocking. And the stripy one is nearly finished. And I don't know what she's going to do next. But Jill might know. So the big little person was there as well. And she was making some more of these with pipe cleaners. Helen was finishing Hector's jumper. Now it is finished, but she's a little concerned that it looks like a jumper dress. And with Hector, well, it's just a little bit big and could do with being a little bit, well, she's going to take it in. So she pulled it in around the back and we all thought it looked better. Black coffee with caramel flavour. It's not caramel syrup, it's the flavoured coffee, so it's not adding any sugar. Yeah, so she's decided that she's going to take his jumper in, and if it looks more fitted, it doesn't look so big. I think because the owner of Hector would like his bottom covering up, I think she would like it to be warm in winter. So that's why his jumper's a bit long. But it looks less oversized if it's taken in a little bit. But I don't think that the owner was concerned about that. But I do think that Helen was. And we did agree with Helen that the jumper needed to be taken in and would look better if it was. Right. So that's what Helen was doing. And she's also made some flowers for her spring garden blanket, knee blanket for her mum. So she made a narcissi yesterday. I am wearing, I can't really tell you what I'm wearing. It's made with cotton because it's actually warm weather here now. And I wouldn't bother making it with wool. I know things can still be warm if they've got holes in because they're kind of insulate. But where I live, the wind just would go straight through. So it's cotton. I think it's too long. I think that's the problem. It would be all right with jeans. But I think, because I'm quite short, I think it looks loads better about that length. And don't remember if it's a top down or a bottom up, because I've had it for years and hardly worn it at all. And I think I've hardly worn it at all, but now putting it on is because of the length. Sleeves are fine. They're all right. And I like the colour. The neckline's quite good, isn't it? It's kind of a little bit square. Anyway, I think it was in a Vogue knitting magazine, and it was definitely in a peachy colour. And it could have been a magazine from about the 90s. And I'm quite sure the photograph for the pattern, the lady was wearing it in this peachy colour and was sitting in an open top car like this with some sunglasses on. So it looked really cool. So I thought, I'm going to make that. And well, it's okay. It actually looks like it's got a crocheted edge. It's definitely a crocheted edge. But it probably was in pieces and started at the bottom, so. And with it being this kind of a pattern, I don't know what my chances would be on pulling it back and not ruining it. But I do have an overlocker. I could just go with the overlocker. I'll think about it. Could be an idea. So what I've got made, knitting wise, is, that's just me skein again. I don't know what I'm making with it yet. It's 80 grams and to me looks like it might be a 4-ply, but I have a niddy noddy and it didn't strike me until afterwards, not knowing much about what I'm doing really. To measure the distance around my niddy noddy, and they actually come in 3 different sizes. Well, the ones that I were looking at from Ashford do. So you can get one that's 1 metre all the way around, one that's 1.5 metres all the way around, and then you can get one that's a 2 metre all the way around. So if you could count while you're wrapping, then you would know how many metres you've made, and then you can easily just weigh it, and then from that you can work out what weight you've spun, can't you? But I could also do wraps per inch, which I haven't done yet. And yesterday at the Guild, I took my spinning wheel and there was a nice lady giving me a bit of advice, but she was worrying that she was bossing me about, but she wasn't, because any advice is welcome. So she was, when you're spinning onto the reel, is it called a reel? Spool. She said to move it more often because I've got sliding eyes for the yarn to go through to load it onto the spool, and mine was a little bit loose, and she said, "But oh, I'm sorry, I hope you don't think I'm being rude." Well, she wasn't being rude, and it was very helpful. So then I felt like I could ask her a few more questions, and I had a little bit, because that was 100 grams, and this is only 80 grams that I've spun. Where's the other 20? Well, it's kind of left on a spool because I hadn't weighed my 2 halves like I explained probably last week or the week before. So what I had to ply at the end wasn't even lengths. So one spool's got quite a bit left on it. And so she told me how to get that off. Now I was thinking of chain plying it, but this is 2 plies plied together. Now if I chain ply what I've got left on the spool, then it would be 3 plies. So then it wouldn't be the same as this. So how she explained, I must stop saying that short word beginning with S. She explained, and I have got a wool winder that you clamp onto the table. And she said if you tape the one end on, wind it all on, and then take it off, you've got your 2 ends then, and you can ply it. So I thought that was quite genius. And if it's taped on, you're not losing the twist, because what you've not got to do is lose your twist in between your other bits and bobs. So I'm going to try that later. So my knitting is a back, a front. There's another front somewhere. Is it in the bag here? No. I've got 2 fronts, a back, and a sleeve, and that's the sleeve. And I had a bit of a disaster yesterday because the mugs at knitting aren't this shape. At spinning at the Guild, and they're very narrow at the bottom and wide at the top, so they just fall over really easily. So my whole cup of coffee that left to cool ended up spilling all over the floor. Spilling, it's not spinning. I knocked it over. Anyway, we cleaned it up and it was okay, and I made another one, and another one, and another one. So I did take some fleece with me. The coffee, I mentioned the coffee because I did get... I ran off to do something about the floor. And Helen went, oh, you're knitting. And my biscuit, I got a lovely homemade ginger cookie that had stem ginger in it and spiced ginger in it. And I was running around trying to clean the floor thinking, I hope my cookie's still there when I'm finished. It was very nice, homemade. So much nicer, aren't they? Is that where my other piece is? Did I leave it there? If I did, I don't know where. I did keep putting my coffee on the windowsill after that, so that if it was on the windowsill, I wouldn't knock it over and nobody else would, and then I could drink it when it was the right temperature. Right, I'm just have a little panic. Oh, it's all right, it's here. That's my other front. So I've got two fronts and a back and a sleeve and another sleeve, nearly finished. It looks a dreadful colour on this screen, and it's the most gorgeous powdery dusty pink, and it just doesn't look nice on the screen at all. It's an absolutely wonderful shade of pink in actuality. Right, yesterday at the Durham Guild of Spinners, Weavers and Dyers, I started on another colourway. I started on small fleece. The thing is, I have no idea what it is, but with a bit more experience, I've got lots of experience of knitting and knitting with different yarns, but not a lot of spinning experience. But I do think it's alpaca, but I have no idea. So it's very soft. It would come away really easily if I'm not careful, but it's strong enough once the twist is in it. It does have a little bit of a sort of an animally smell, but not particularly sheepy. I think it's way too soft for sheep's wool, and the colour just makes it look like it's natural alpaca. I think that's what it is. Anyway, it's spinning nicely. So that's the next spinning, because I'm really still a beginner, and I have had my spinning wheel for years and years and years, like probably about 15 years, because they don't even make that one anymore. It's an Ashford Joy, and the one that they do now is the Ashford Joy 2. They've made some modifications that I don't really know what they all are, but mine has a handle on the top, and the Ashford Joy 2, the handle is part of the frame, because the lady who was helping me was also working on an Ashford Joy, but hers was slightly different than mine, and she knew what the difference was. Right, so apart from spilling the coffee, there wasn't much of an agenda. I don't think there wasn't a workshop or anything. We just all went along and did our thing. So there were some people weaving on tables around the side, and in the middle of the room, it's in a church hall, in the middle of the room, we just put chairs out and sit round in a big circle. And when more people arrive, the circle gets bigger. More chairs get brought out, and we take our own lunch and make coffee or tea whenever we like. And there's usually some homemade biscuits and things, which I should probably contribute to at some point. So there is a gentleman called Bill, who's very handy, and he's a retired engineer, and he loves nothing more than being useful and refurbishing things. And there's the lady I mentioned who had spun and dyed and was knitting a Fair Isle sweater for her husband. She's really very enthusiastic about the spinning, and she was looking for this wheel. They can call it the great wheel, or a walking wheel, or a muckle wheel. So I think the north of England, we call it a muckle wheel, because he was stressing that that's what we call it. So it comes after the drop spindle, but before a treadle wheel. And they would walk up and down. It was a lot faster than a drop spindle, but they would mainly be used stood up, I think. And anyway, I can probably not tell you quite as well as Bill. So I've got a little bit of footage of Debbie using her wheel, because Bill has just fixed it up for her. And he does, I think he will explain about cutting 2 inches off the legs because of woodworm. This wheel is from around 1850s. It's that old. And it's just a lump of wood. I did get a photograph of underneath, but it was against the light, so I don't think it was very clear. And I didn't really want to ask him to turn around to get better light, because he was lifting it up to show me. He's so enthusiastic about the wheels and the things that he's done. It's really lovely. So there's he even sourced some antique nails or screws for one part of it, but I don't know if I recorded all of it, because actually I should have done, because he did tell me a lot about the wheel. So you turn it by hand to put the twist in, and then reel it on when you've got enough twisting. So what I have filmed is Debbie's first go on her refurbished wheel, which was, what an opportunity. So I thought you'd all like to see that.
I do not appear anywhere on social media.
Don't you?
No, not at all. I don't do it.
Scarlet Pimpernel. Oh, it looks...
You use the spokes, not the wheel. And you can have something as well called, if you're too far away, what call a wheel boy. Wheel boy? Yes, it's just basically a piece of wood like a club. Operating. Yeah, that's a wheel boy. I'm full of useless information.
Almost identical, so...
Right, yeah. And you've hunted about for this?
Those were taken in the 1930s by a local newspaper.
Right.
Yeah. Very, very similar.
I subscribed to like an auction alert thing, and I've been waiting 2 years for one to come up.
On there, and he turns it with a handle, but it's identical to that except for the extra pillar to support it, you know, like your spinning wheel.
Right.
And he's turning that by hand. Now on the other one, where's the other one? Where's the other one? There, you see.
Oh,
now
right.
that is turning by hand, and it has the same support there.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same back, but it's hidden. Are you with me with all the dust and everything that's on the floor?
Yeah.
And that there as well.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the same 1937, but that would have been 100 years old then.
Yeah.
You can see with the rot that's on the back of this.
Yeah. Amazing.
I can't find any women spinning on these backwards and forwards on the wheel.
What, 20 miles?
20 miles a day,
So we
because
should always spin
you were
on
backwards and forwards because of the size of the wheel and the distance between.
Yeah.
But you could have 6 foot out, you know, you were basically spinning a 6 foot length at the same time. So you were like 2 meters backwards and forward, you know, all day.
Right. Yeah.
12-hour shifts.
It revolutionised production because it's still not as fast as it's like a type of wheel we use, but it was an awful lot faster than spinning on a spindle. But in fact, that's all this is a spindle, drop spindle, but turned that way.
Turn sideways on.
Yeah.
It's the stepping stone between a spindle and the typical Saxony wheel.
I mean, the Saxony wheels took quite a while to take off in this country.
And they were expensive.
Because of the price.
Yeah, really
cost.
expensive.
I mean, look at the price what you probably paid for your wheel.
Oh, it's worth a couple of hundred more than I paid for it already.
The stitching.
Oh, yeah.
That's stitched
been
the
restored.
cracks. This has been replaced. The leathers have been replaced. That's been made from scratch.
Right.
That system there. But the feet, I had to cut 2 inches off the bottom for the woodworm. So I've put extra expensive feet on rubbers. But it's all been treated.
I was looking, there's like dints and things in it, and a big knot.
Right.
And there's the wooden pegs instead of metal ones, isn't there? Like the woodwork on it.
Just a minute. Very gently tip this over. Have a look at underneath.
Oh yeah.
It's so rustic, isn't it?
Yeah. It was really very interesting. She had a search out. I don't think they're very common. And they made their way to Europe, and then it took about another 200 years for them to arrive on our shores. And guess where they were made originally? China. So nothing much has changed there. Right then, I think that's about it for this week. So more news, maybe next week.